Hey, hello, everybody. This is Raoul Sada with the Surprise Regional Chamber of Commerce. We're presenting today on the 2021-23 strategic plan for ACE. The chair of that committee on collective impact is Joe, and unfortunately, Joe was unable to attend this portion of the ACE conference. And I was so impressed with Joe's wisdom and perspective. I thought it was very important to have the entire group hear some of Joe's thoughts and observations. And so with that, Joe, I know you're the senior advisor, public policy, Greater Flagstaff Chamber of Commerce, and you chair the collective impact portion of the strategic plan. And I served with you on that subcommittee. And I had a question for you. Why do you think this section is so important for the ACE? And but before you answer that question, go ahead and tell us a little bit about some of your background, because I was personally very much impressed with what you bring to the table.
Yeah, thanks, Raoul. I've been blessed in my professional career for a number of great experiences. I worked in Washington, D.C. in the mid-90s at the time when a very pro-business majority took over the U.S. Congress after the 1994 election, and a lot of good things were done for businesses nationwide under that new Congress. And I worked there a number of years and then came out to Arizona and ran a couple targeted congressional campaigns in '98 and in 2002 in Arizona. And I did a campaign in the Central Valley of California in 2000 that was the #1 congressional race in California. It was probably in the top 3 or 4 challenger races, trying to take out a Democrat, Blue Dog Democrat in the Central Valley of California, who'd sort of lost touch on a number of issues, particularly water for farmers. The interesting story about that campaign is that the U.S. Chamber of Commerce put $1 million in behind our opponent in that race and supported the incumbent Democrat in 2000. So, you know, I cut my teeth in with strategy in congressional races in the West, and then went on and did some other campaign activities in the early 2000s. But I joined Julie Pastrick, the president and CEO of the Greater Flagstaff Chamber, in 2005, and we worked together hand in hand on increasing advocacy at our chamber from 2005 to 2011. And then I ran a small chamber in the Valley for a couple of years. Okay. And then found myself back up here. Couldn't get too far away from Flagstaff and this beautiful community on the hill. So happy to be with you and discuss the collective impact portion of the ACE strategic plan. You know, I think the purpose states it very clearly: strengthen Arizona chambers to be the catalyst, convener, and champion. I'm not sure where those 3 words came from. I'm not sure if that was an IOM origination or it came out of, you know, a different organization, maybe WACE, or where those.
I think it was WACE. It was a branding marketing study that they had done.
I can't tell you how I've felt in the last several years. I'm going on 3 years now back at the Greater Flagstaff Chamber, how critical those terms are in defining us as entities, as local chambers, and defining the work that we do every day. I find the work we do, particularly at the Greater Flagstaff Chamber, very easy to see how we are a catalyst for moving our community forward. Convener, we're doing meetings right now with our hospital CEO and our city council to get them on the same page on a major new construction. It would be the largest and most expensive healthcare facility in the state of Arizona. And then we're a champion for our stakeholders on a daily basis here. And so that's the core purpose of this collective impact portion of the strategic plan. Moving on quickly, stronger, vibrant communities. I mean, that's what we all fight for every day. Some really interesting things there, advocating for pro-employer environments. This is tough. I mean, we're in an age and a time when the pro-labor movement, in Washington has really filtered out. They've gained a lot of momentum locally in local communities and places where you really wouldn't have a big push for the labor agenda. And they're making strides, and those impact employer environments, those labor regulations. We've seen this in California, and it's rolling across the country, and we're kind of sandwiched in it because it's a top priority in Washington, D.C. as well. And that impacts the pro-employer environment. So being very pro-employer is critical, I think, as a strategy. Advocating for quality of life initiatives, diversified housing options, transportation, education, amenities. We hear this all the time these days. The pressure on housing in the state of Arizona and all our communities is very high. It doesn't just have to be, the beautiful city on a hill up here in Flagstaff that has housing challenges. We know these things are omnipresent across our Arizona communities today. And then,
Joe,
yeah.
When we spoke, I had mentioned when we were talking about this report and this particular section, I had made a comment about, are a lot of chambers doing advocacy? And I kind of thought that a lot of chambers were not, but you had a different perspective on that.
Yeah, I think everybody's probably doing it. They might not have a full-time staffer like myself dedicated to it because budgets are tight. Certainly understand that. But I feel like more than ever, chambers are aware of the importance of advocacy. I see that in feedback through ACE communications. I see that in individual chambers stepping up and supporting their local businesses and addressing governments who at the local level predominantly seek to overregulate business with policies they think are appropriate. And so chambers might not, you go back and you think, well, a lot of people who don't understand advocacy, they think that being engaged in advocacy or politics is something that it's tough for them to understand. They tend to think that it equates with partisanship and with being involved in campaigns, and those things you can do as a chamber, but they're completely different. The campaign side of life and who's your mayor, who sits on council, those things you can be engaged in, but legally, but they're different than every day being a voice for your local business community and various sectors of your business community, whether it's the manufacturing sector, whether it's a retail sector, whether it's the tourism sector. There's a number of those that are common threads through all our communities. Defense is very high as a priority in many communities in Arizona. Being an advocate for an increased DoD budget and increased spending is critical in supporting our global mission on defense. And Arizona plays a huge role in that with something like 12 billion plus now statewide that's spent. So being in advocacy is not necessarily being overly political from a partisan standpoint. It's just sticking up for your local employers when they don't have the time to be a voice before governments, either local, state, or federal.
Well, given that we probably got 1 or 2 minutes left here, could you give us a little brief wrap up or any other comments you would like to share for the good of the group?
Yeah, I look here in the second objective. So the first objective of our collective impact piece of the strategic plan, and kudos to Sherry at the Prescott Chamber for really keeping us on track and I know you and I participated in some group events related to the strategic plan, and that's been, I think, very helpful for ACE. And this will really be a good direction for ACE moving forward, because now more than ever, it's incumbent upon us to be a catalyst, convener, and champion for our business members so that we have a strong, vibrant community. We're under a lot of pressure at various government levels, whether it be local, state, or federal, whether it's a local wage mandate like we have in Flagstaff that tells an employer that you must pay a specific wage to an employee, regardless of that employee's credentials. You have governments not just getting into the labor market and skewing the labor market, but you have on the other side of that, of course, we've all seen our employers are struggling to find workers because a lot of workers are sitting at home collecting free money and unemployment insurance during this pandemic. That's been a challenge for us, right? So it's so critical right now that we are in front of our elected officials at all levels. In fact, we just had the U.S. Chamber Director for Policy in the West, Vartan, was with us. We all know Vartan. He was in our Flagstaff Chamber building for our business advocacy meeting last Thursday and mentioned that I said to him, pulled him aside and said, hey, we need to get back to doing DC fly-ins and being back in Washington and seeing our elected officials. Just in the last couple of weeks, we've had $1 trillion infrastructure package, $3.5 trillion spending bill with major tax increases, which have huge impacts on businesses and employers. So it's critical that this is a critical component of the strategic plan. And I think it puts us on a good direction to continue what we do in advocacy with all our great partners, of course, led by the Greater Phoenix Chamber of Commerce and their team, Mike and Jen. We're so grateful for their leadership at the local level, at the state level. And then, of course, being a voice for our federal officials is critical again. So, yeah, just wrapping up, thank you for allowing me to share some time with you. It was good to see you earlier in the week, and I'm sorry that I couldn't be here for this particular portion, but Raoul, how creative on your end to think to record this and allow me to say a few words on this.
Well, thank you again for your leadership on the ACE board and for volunteering to chair this particular committee. I've just learned a lot from you, just hanging out with you and having conversations. So thank you very much, Joe, and we'll see you later.
You got it. Happy to do it. See you later.